Hi, this is the Headset Historian, and today we're going to talk about the Quest 3. You also might notice I have some new lights, so you can see my hands in much higher definition. So for anyone who's been following the channel, they know I'm a big fan of the Quest Pro, and they also know that I've been trying to make a tough decision the last few days. The reason why I have to make a tough decision is financially, I can't afford to have both the Quest 3 and the Quest Pro, or rather I can't justify having both of them. Trying to save up for different things, mainly for a house, so frugality is kind of the aim of my budgeting choices these days. So I guess buying a new headset obviously isn't very frugal, but my thought process was I already had the Quest Pro, I'll buy the Quest 3 and I'll trial it. If I then decide I like the Quest 3, I'll keep it and sell the Quest Pro, or vice versa. And I want to just take you through the journey I've had the last few days with this headset, my thoughts and impressions, very brief, very initial thoughts and impressions, so don't take this as a full review or anything of the sort. First, I want to talk about why someone owning a Quest Pro may want a Quest 3. My number one reason is mixed reality. Now, I originally bought the Quest Pro with the intention of mixed reality being its primary use case, which of course was the advertised use case, so that was something that seemed quite promising. But the reality is the Quest Pro's mixed reality is at best a useful way of grabbing a drink in the room. That's about the best I can say for it. It's just not good, full stop. It's useful for, finding your way around if you need to, but because of the open design, that wasn't really an issue anyway. So, the open design lets you see out around yourself quite easily, if you're not using the light blockers. So what was the point? You could just kind of see pretty much everything anyway. So I know their intentions were good, but their execution left a lot to be desired. Quest 3 I bought primarily because I wanted to see how much the mixed reality had come along. The second reason why I was interested in Quest 3 was, a big part of it was because it had the soft strap that could be replaced. I do love the Quest Pro, I love its strap, but it being rigid does bother me. It's cumbersome. It means that transporting the headset and bringing it around with you is much more of a hassle than it should be. So I was keen to see what the community come up with in terms of modifications. So I'll show you my Quest 3 briefly. As you can see, I've already modified my Quest 3. Right now it has the Vive Deluxe audio strap, and it's also got a counterweight on it. So this does make for an extremely balanced headset. This is quite literally perfectly balanced, as all things should be, or wherever that saying goes. You might notice the audio cables over here. I routed it around behind the rear head cushion, but that's neither here nor there. So first things we'll talk about is the comfort then, seeing as we're looking at this already. Out of the box, the Quest 3 is quite comfortable. It's drastically more comfortable than the Quest 2. I've seen a lot of people saying that, the head strap in the Quest 3 is a lot better than the head strap in the Quest 2. The head strap in the Quest 3 is marginally better. If you think it's a lot better, get help, speak to a professional. I'm just joking, but if the reason why the Quest 2 is so much less comfortable out of the box is not because of the head strap. The head strap is maybe 5% of the reason. The reason is the reduced depth and the reduced leverage on your face. So if you're watching this video, you're probably someone that already knows that anyway, so I'll not go into it too deeply. Pancake lenses, smaller form factor, same weight, less leverage. There we go. You've got better comfort. You're not prying something on your face. I used the soft strap for maybe half an hour just to try it out, just to test it out, and it was fine. And I actually will keep the soft strap, and I do see myself using it in the future. When I will use the soft strap is when transporting the headset. If I'm traveling somewhere, take off this bulky strap, put on the soft strap, and then you can hack the headset down into this size in a backpack. And for someone wanting to use it for mixed reality purposes, primarily as a virtual monitor for doing work from home, that is brilliant. Or remote working, I should say, work from home. is just a general term for it, but I mean working remotely. So let's talk about the strong points of the Quest 3. The first and most important compared to the Quest 2 are the lenses. The lenses are absolutely brilliant. You may notice that I have prescription lenses on it right now. These are actually the prescription lenses from my Quest Pro. However, I would not recommend, if you have those lenses, using them on this. I'm only using them very temporarily. I've already ordered the Zenni ones, and I'm kind of giving a spoiler here as to the conclusion that I'm coming to. But I decided to just stick those in, but they've scuffed up some of the rubber around the facial interface and stuff, so I wouldn't recommend it. They don't sit in that well. They kind of stick on your face, so it's very much a temporary measure. So yeah, the lenses on this, they're the same as the Quest Pro. They say that they're the next iteration. I personally can't tell any difference between the lenses on the Quest Pro and the lenses in this. They seem the exact same to me, but also I think that these lenses are so good that it's at the point where a 10% improvement, while a large improvement, that 100% that's already there is already so brilliant that, you really need to be quite discerning. You really need to have very, very sensitive eyes, or, you need to really know what you're looking for. And for me personally, I put this headset on, I can't tell any difference between the lenses. Color uniformity and brightness uniformity across the lenses is something I've seen people talking about. I will say there is a dark ring around the lens. Now on the Quest Pro, which I'll bring over my Quest Pro here, on the Quest Pro you can mitigate that somewhat with an experimental feature. Then that feature uses the local dimming. If you don't know what local dimming is, it's essentially the backlight on the LCD panel can be individually turned on and off, the different lighting zones. So what they do to try and counteract this is that you would have the zones turned on and off in certain places, or dimmed rather in certain places, so that way the outer ring of the lens that looks darker will be more uniform. I never turn on that feature. I've turned it on and off, and I notice a very, very, very slight difference. And the only real difference I notice is that it makes the overall image a bit darker. And yes, the edges are more uniform in brightness, but for me it's really not been an issue. If I look for it, I can see it, but it's a case of focusing on something in my periphery and then tilting my head back and forth, and then I can see the light fluctuate. In practice, it's really not an issue for me. I'm sure there's some people out there where it is an issue, but I think that is genuinely the minority. Like a very, very small fraction of people, I think, will actually be bothered by it. Perhaps initially for the first 5 minutes you're bothered by it, and then it should settle. So if you're worried about lens imperfections, and the only lens imperfections on these that I can think of are the darkness, that contrast or that brightness difference at the edges, but it's so minor and it goes away almost immediately. Other than that, these lenses are, I would go far as to say, perfect. They seem perfect. Of course lenses can be improved, and one of the big ways they can be improved is you have barrel distortion on lenses, and the more significant the barrel distortion is that you need to account for, the higher your rendering resolution has to be to get the same image clarity as the native panel. As optics get better, there is less need to counteract the barrel distortion, which means that you can actually have a lower render resolution but gain the same clarity. So that's one benefit of lenses going forward. And of course, another benefit would be to have better light efficiency. That is the biggest concern with pancake lenses, or the biggest hurdle to get over with pancake lenses, is the light efficiency. So because pancake lenses are stacked elements and they're bouncing the light back and forth, the end result is that you lose a lot of light in the translation through the lens. So that is something that needs to be addressed. Sorry, this is kind of a tangent, because I guess I'm meant to be comparing these two headsets and talking about which one I chose and why I chose it. I just thought I'd go off on that tangent, but I guess if you're watching this, maybe that's an enjoyable thing for you. Let me know if this is something I should really avoid in future, then also let me know that. So yeah, the optical stack is probably the biggest upgrade on the Quest 3 from the Quest 2, and maybe tied with it, or slightly less perhaps, is the new SoC, the XR2 Gen 2. And for anyone wondering, XR2 Gen 2, why not an XR3? Well, the naming convention that Snapdragon are going for is XR1 is their budget SoC for headsets, and then the XR2 is the premium SoC, and then there's going to be just Gen 1, which was on Quest 2 and such, Gen 2, Gen 3, etc. XR1 Gen 1, for example, was on the Vive Flow. XR1 Gen 2, we haven't heard anything about yet. I would imagine it would be similar to XR2 in performance, but at a much reduced cost, and maybe it has some extra features that are more modern and useful. Anyway, moving on. We have the much better performance, the much better optical stack, and then the greatly increased comfort. So if you're comparing the Quest 2 to the Quest 3, it is absolutely night and day. This device is so much better. There is just absolutely no doubt in my mind. If you have a Quest 2, get this headset. If you're looking for an upgrade, or if you use VR regularly, get this headset. You know, if you're someone that just dives in the odd time or just plays some Beat Saber and you don't find the comfort of the Quest 2 to be a major issue because you're only playing for half an hour at a time, then yeah, keep the Quest 2. You know, it's still a really good headset. I don't think there's any reason, you know, to jump out there. But if you are a VR enthusiast, which if you're watching this channel, I think that's quite likely you are, then the Quest 3 is a massive step up, as was the Quest Pro. Quest Pro is a massive step up. Once I got the Quest Pro, there was absolutely no chance of me ever going back to the Quest 2. However, you're talking a massive price difference there, while here, the price difference is still quite significant. You know, there's no denying that. And Meta are still selling the Quest 2 alongside this. So, you know, it is a more premium option. And actually, that's one thing I want to talk about next, is the build quality of this. I was very surprised about the build quality of the Quest 3. It feels great. It feels so solid. I'm guessing part of that is just because there's less space because of the Fresnel lenses. You've got just an empty space there, so it feels hollow. You know, we're pretty good at intuiting the depth, the mass of something, so the makeup of something. So this feels a lot more solid. It feels a lot more dense. It feels a lot more quality. But the facial interface is a lot better. You know, the fact that you have this eye relief on it, it seems like, you know, you've got the dial for the IPD. It just seems like a much more carefully thought out product. Like, I feel like the Quest 2 they saw an opportunity with the XR2, and they saw that the Quest 1 was doing well but also expensive to produce and difficult to produce. So I think they kind of jumped onto the Quest 2 very quickly, and the Quest 2 was very much Quest 1, but here's some more things, and you know, we've reduced the cost drastically. Quest 3 feels like an actual next generational leap. Quest 1 and 2, I would say, are fairly close together, aside from performance of the chipset that it had. But Quest 3 does feel like an actual leap. Quest Pro sits in the middle in many ways. It's the same leap ahead in terms of comfort if you modify it, and in terms of the optical stack and stuff. And then of course it's ahead in other ways, like the eye tracking, face tracking, local dimming, things like that. So before I compare the two, I'll put the Quest Pro aside for a moment. We'll focus on this again just for a minute. My thoughts on the Quest 3 so far are, this headset is really good. Like I said, it's very well thought out. For the price, it seems brilliant. Like $299, when the Quest 2 released for $299, that price was really exceptional. That price really alarmed people. People were like, you know, there was so much discussion about like, oh, they're really undercutting, they're really selling below cost and stuff. And at the very least, they were selling at cost. Whether they're selling below cost or not, you know, that's to be debated. And of course, there is that console business strategy of, if you're selling software on the store for a 30% cut, then you can justify subsidizing the hardware. Quest 3, whether it's subsidized or not, I'm not sure. I would imagine it's at least very close to being at cost. But we don't see that discussion like there was with the Quest 2. With the Quest 2, there was, I would say, outrage at the fact that it was being so cheap, which I always find a bit strange, to be honest, because it's been a model that consoles have done for quite a while, and that's not really seemed to have caused any controversy. But I think it's, you know, a new growing segment, and then you see a large company trying to, become a monopoly on it. So I can understand people's concern there. The Quest 3, it seems, I don't it's a great headset for the money, but I also don't feel like I'm getting the bargain that I got with the Quest 2. The Quest 2 felt like incredible value. Quest 3, it was a consideration. I was like, okay, this is a decent chunk of change. It's not, it's not an impulse buy. The Quest 2 was for some people, if you're like a working professional, it was in that impulse buy territory. Quest 3 is outside of that impulse buy territory. I've used this headset for a few days now. The comfort is good. I'll get on to the comfort again in a minute, because that's one of the main things I want to talk about actually. The LCD panel on it is quite good. Or sorry, panels. That's important to note. There's 2 panels on this one, unlike the Quest 2. Of course, the Quest Pro also has 2 panels, a panel per eye. Resolution on this is higher than the Quest Pro, and the audio is surprisingly good. Of course, I'm using the Vive DAS right now, but I will be changing that soon enough. Actually, I prefer the built-in audio than I like the DAS, which probably isn't the most controversial opinion, because a lot of people really hate the audio on this head strap. I've always been fine with it, but I will say for VR, having a more open audio design where it's not sitting on your ears really does add to immersion. Of course, you can hear stuff around you then, so you need to be in an environment that's suiting for it. But yeah, so far the headset has been very good. The main thing I want to talk about immediately is mixed reality. So when I put this headset on, I had fallen into the hype a bit too much. My expectations were too high, I do believe that, but I was disappointed by the mixed reality on this. Now, I was initially disappointed, and the main reason for that was the clarity was not the step up from the Quest Pro that I was expecting. It's definitely better than the Quest Pro, but it's not significantly better. Honestly, it's not significantly better in terms of just pure clarity. If you're looking at 2 things in the same condition, the clarity is not the step up that I would have thought it was. Now side by side of that, I looked at the same things a few times, and it's quite a bit better. I would say, I can't remember what they market it as. I would say it's like double the resolving power. However, where it does succeed the Quest Pro quite significantly is in things like exposure. So with the Quest Pro, if you looked at the window, it was just a blown out mess. You weren't seeing anything, you were just seeing this glow, and that was it. Quest 3, you look out a window and you can look out the window, and that's that. It works as you would expect. So when you initially put on the headset, or at least when I initially put on the headset, the clarity coming from the Quest Pro was disappointing, because it wasn't this significant improvement that I was hoping it would be. And in the near field, there's a lot of issues with warping and distortions. So people said online, oh, you can read your phone with it. And yeah, you can read your phone, but you would never want to. I would always want to take off my headset or look through the nose gap, because you can hold your phone and read it, but it's warping, it's very awkward, and I find I have to close one eye to actually read it. So that's not a natural use case. That's not a great use case. I'm sure this will improve over time. Meta do typically, or at least with Quest 2 anyway, they've done a great job of improving the software over time. It does feel like this headset came out slightly too early. For example, they're promising, I believe it's December, or by the end of the year, they're promising an occlusion update, so that if a menu is floating here and you can put your hand behind it rather than your hand always being above the menu, things like that really should have been there on launch. So, and the fact that you have games like Asgard Wrath coming out in December, it feels like things got pushed forward a bit, where those things are probably meant to be ready for launch to kind of have a stronger launch. But I suppose I don't mind. Personally, I don't mind getting a headset a bit earlier and seeing it evolve. I quite like that. That's quite interesting. But in terms of, getting a product out to the public and out to the market, it's probably not the best decision. But then again, you can't really release something in December. I'm not sure. It seems like things don't get released in December. It's too late by then. You've missed the Christmas rush, and of course that is an important one. So yeah, the mixed reality initially was a disappointment, but then as I used it a bit more, there was a couple of ways that it really impressed me. One was the exposure compensation, as I was talking about, and another one was in the depth sensor, which is here, and when this is running you can actually see it flashing red. You've probably noticed that type of flashing red before in depth sensors within a headset, you know, like here where you're to detect if you're wearing the headset or not. But obviously a depth sensor like that can't do anything much except for that large nose pressing against it. You know, that's very, very trivial use case. But this depth sensor, so I tried that first encounters experience, which is the one you might see about where you scan your room and then, you know, the wall starts breaking away, you're trying to catch these little furry critters. I will say when I scanned the room, it blew me away. Tilting your head around and looking at the room to scan it and just seeing. So I have in my office, you know, there's a slanted roof and it's not just uniform, it's like slanted at a couple of angles, you know, it's kind of like where two houses are joined together sort of thing. And that, it scanned it perfectly. And it actually, that was the geometry that was present then. The room that I was scanning was more cluttered than it normally would be. So it was a pretty tough case for it to try and scan and to make a geometry of it. I was really, really impressed by that though. And I think that is something that is going to be very exciting. Because for a while I was thinking, oh, I should remake my home in VR, you know, on the Quest Pro and then map it and go around. But now this is the sort of thing where I could walk around the house with this depth scanner and just map out the entire house and then apply apply assets to it afterwards. I believe there's an app, Hauntify, I think it's called. There's probably more than one, of course, right now. But yeah, I think Hauntify, you scan your house in a similar way. I think on the Quest Pro you had to manually, you know, put a staircase here, put a wall there. So I'm guessing a lot of these things will become a lot more automatic, and then suddenly your home is a bit more of a theme park. So that was that really actually kind of came across quite impressive, but it's not enough to sell me on the headset right now just yet, as in I need to see more use cases. In terms of my main use case of being a monitor replacement, the Quest Pro was almost there. I actually think in terms of PPD, in terms of, you know, clarity of text and resolution, I could use it. Actually I could, but the software wasn't good enough yet personally. And Quest 3 is probably going to be the same just now, but I'll have to give it another try. But unfortunately I haven't had a chance yet to test that, so I can't really give much of an opinion on that just yet. Let's go back to talking about the two headsets in comparison. Now you can see the Quest Pro, Quest 3. Quest Pro is just, I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. It's a very premium headset. I like all the materials. You know, as much as I dislike having a rigid head strap for the lack of customization, but I will say that it is very nice having something that is just so sleek. It looks very nice, but ultimately something being sleek and looking nice is, you know, it's a bonus. It's not the meat. It's not really substantial. Ultimately, my decision has been Quest 3. I'm staying with the Quest 3. Quest Pro was already sold, actually. It's being shipped off tomorrow, so I wanted to get this video done quickly. The Quest Pro, I sold it for more than I paid for the Quest 3. So, you know, what are you going to do there? That's kind of a no-brainer for me personally. If I couldn't have sold the Quest Pro for at least the same amount as the Quest 3, it would be a lot more tough decision, but that kind of made the decision for me. Another thing that really made the decision for me was I bought a Wi-Fi 6E router specifically for the Quest Pro. So that's a 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi router. And this router, I know for sure that other people have had it working with the Quest Pro. And I went back and forth for, I think it was almost 3 months with Meta trying to sort it out. And they kept saying about, you know, this hotfix is coming up, this was sorted, yada yada. Hotfix come out, didn't sort it, factory refresh, I tried so many times, and it would briefly see it. If I ever factory refresh the headset, it would see the 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi signal on startup. It could never connect. And I've heard some people RMA'd it and they had luck with that, but it just never worked for me, full stop. It did not work. Quest 3 out of the box worked perfect. It's not had any issues since. This brings me to probably the main reason why I decided Quest 3 over Quest Pro. So ignoring the financial aspect of it, which that was ultimately what kind of bit the bullet for it, but that was just more so of a timing thing. But I think I was probably going this way anyway. But the main thing was that the Quest 3 is going to be supported drastically better than the Quest Pro. Quest Pro is an amazing headset, but Meta are going to abandon it. I have no doubt about it. And the reason why I think that is, A, it sold poorly, but B, not only did it sell poorly, but its makeup is unique. It's different than the Quest 3. So its pass-through, for example, it has 2 black and white cameras, and then it has a color camera that it overlays the color onto the black and white. So its mixed reality is fundamentally different, regardless of the depth sensor. Fundamentally, it is a different integration of mixed reality than the Quest 3. I think the eye tracking, face tracking will be supported well going forward, because they're going to continue down that route, and it will be coming back. Eye tracking, face tracking is definitely going to be part of future Meta headsets. This format of doing mixed reality, I would be absolutely shocked if it ever comes back. When you're moving your hand in front of yourself in the near field on the Quest 3, you'll see that warping, you'll see that kind of distortions, but it's a lot more solid than the Quest Pro, because when you do it on the Quest Pro, you're seeing this warping, but you're also seeing a black and white trail of your hand, and you're seeing the color come in and out. So it's doing a lot more, and it's also doing it with a weaker chipset. So it's, and then it's also doing eye tracking, face tracking at the same time. So it's just, I would be very, very shocked if this implementation of mixed reality makes a return. And by mixed reality, I mean color pass-through, of course. Mixed reality is more than just color pass-through, so I should be more specific. This implementation of color pass-through is almost certainly abandoned. I would be shocked if there's any updates to it whatsoever going forward. I think what you have in the Quest Pro right now is what you have. Quest 3, you're going to see significant improvements over time. I'm pretty certain about that. So the main thing that I was worried about missing on the Quest Pro is not the eye tracking, it's not the face tracking, it's not the local dimming, and it's not the quantum dots. The main thing I was worried about missing is the open form factor. So I'm one of those absolute psychopaths that uses a Quest Pro without any light blockers. I love it. I do not want to go back to using a headset with light blockers or with a facial gasket like this. 2 reasons. First reason, I hate having stuff rubbing around my eyes. I don't like it at all. It makes me even skeptical of the big screen beyond, to be totally honest. I think though that probably would be great, but I'm just skeptical about whether I would find it comfortable or not, because I find it's just very irritating. My skin gets irritated easily. But the other biggest reason is heat. I get extremely hot extremely easily, and I find when I'm using a headset that's got an enclosed gasket, I'm just like 30 minutes in, I'm absolutely pumping sweat, and it doesn't matter. I could be outside in the middle of Antarctica. Is that Antarctica? Sorry, yeah, it's Antarctica. Anyway, I could be in the middle of an iceberg encased within the ice, and I would still probably melt everything, because somehow this small part of my face generates enough heat to power, a small country. So the open design allows that immense power production to dissipate, and it means I can use VR comfortably. So Quest Pro is better for PC VR in some ways. Colors are better, contrast is better. Shockingly, the contrast is not that much better than you'd expect. 2 reasons, I believe. First reason is the LCD on the Quest 3, at least with the one I have, has the best blacks I've ever seen on an LCD, assuming I'm talking an LCD without local dimming or anything like that. Of course, the screens within the Quest Pro are LCD, but they're mini LED, they've got local dimming, so they're going to have better contrast. But the black levels on the Quest 3, I was very surprised. They're pretty good. They're still LCD black levels, so they're not, when I say pretty good, I mean pretty good for LCD. They're obviously not good blacks or anything like that, but it's better than it has any business being, so I was quite happy with that. I'm not particularly sensitive to black levels. Quantum dots, the colors are definitely a bit better than the Quest Pro, but not as much as I would have expected. Switching between the two, I could tell the colors are better, but it's like, you know, if you ever like change the vibrance on a screen or something like that, or you tweak the screen profile a bit on like a monitor or something like that, things look a bit better. But you know that you'd get used to the other one very quickly, or you wouldn't even notice until you flicked that profile and you're like, oh, this looks a bit better. So Quest 3 is, for me personally, it's more than adequate. I'm actually happy enough with it. And then the second reason for the contrast, the local dimming, is the local dimming on the Quest Pro is not nearly aggressive enough. So I had a Pimax Crystal, and the local dimming on that was much more aggressive. And you know, there was some slight issues with that, like some areas where perhaps in the very dark colors it was a bit hard to see things because it was dimming those LEDs a bit too much perhaps. But the contrast levels look so much better on Pimax Crystal than they do on the Quest Pro. That might be a controversial thing to say, some people might disagree with me, but that was my experience anyway. If I could push the local dimming on the Quest Pro harder, then I think I would probably appreciate it a lot more and it would make this decision more difficult, but we don't really have control over any of these things. So the reality is, the local dimming, the quantum dots, not nearly as big of a difference as I would have expected. And then eye tracking, face tracking, as great as those features are, they're not something I actually use. I don't really play Microsoft Flight Simulator or any games that are extremely demanding where the dynamic foveated rendering would be a huge benefit to me. So for me personally, I just have eye tracking and face tracking turned off all the time because I want the better battery life. So that meant that, you know, the Quest 3 was really kind of running out of things that would appeal to me. And then I decided, okay, Quest Pro just can't really hold me anymore. It doesn't have what I need. Or, you know. So my conclusion was Quest 3, I'm going to go with it. But also, I'm going to try something because I cannot go back to having this. I don't want my face entombed in a small gasket. So I decided I'll get a Bobo VR M2 Plus. Now, M2, Quest 2, these aren't the right combination. You know, this head strap is not for this headset. Compatible with Quest 2, not compatible with Quest 3, but I have a 3D printer, so someone's already put up an adapter, and Bobo VR are also releasing their own, you know, adapter kit so that you can switch this over to work with the Quest 3. So my hope is that with this, and perhaps I need to upgrade it or, you know, 3D print another part with another forehead cushion. My hopes is that I can recreate the open air design of the Quest Pro with the Quest 3 using this head strap. And then I also have an additional battery, so I get extra battery life, I get that nice counterbalance, and I also get another huge benefit of this is this strap here, it's hinged so it can fold in on itself, so you get a nice head strap that's quite compact and readily able to move about, and I find it also protects the lenses. I don't know if that was a deliberate design choice by Bobo, but it's something that worked out extremely well in my previous time when I had this for the Quest 2. So that's another video for another day where I want to see, can I emulate the Quest Pro open air design with a Quest 3 and a Bobo VR M2 Plus or M3 Plus. They're going to be the same thing essentially. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. That'll be a video that's coming up. But yeah, the reality is I decided to go with the Quest 3. There was quite a few factors. Customizable head strap, more powerful SoC. It's got a future ahead of it. The Quest Pro doesn't. So, and the last thing I'll say is the controllers. This is genuinely going to be a controversial opinion. I much prefer these controllers. I know, some people are screaming at their screen right now, putting their phone over their kneecap and splitting it in half. I'm so sorry to have cost you so much damages. But anyway, I love these controllers. They are the best of both worlds. Quest Pro controllers do feel much better. Now that is undeniable. Quest Pro controllers have better haptics, although these have pretty damn good haptics. Quest Pro controllers have better haptics. They feel better in the hand, better build quality. The buttons feel better. Thumbstick is pretty much the exact same actually, but these buttons definitely feel better on the Quest Pro controllers. And they got the stylus tip, I guess. I've never used that. I've never really heard of anyone using it, to be honest. I'm sure some people out there do. No offense to yourselves, I just mean it's an uncommon use feature. But the main reason why I like these is I picked them up, bang, they worked instantly. They've never given up. I've never had a single issue with these the entire time I've used them. Now, admittedly, that's not a huge amount of time just yet, but they've been rock solid. Quest Pro controllers were rock solid at one time, and they're so inconsistent. Sometimes they're rock solid, and then sometimes the controller's 2 inches away, and I have to keep doing a figure of 8, or I've changed Wi-Fi signal, and then that causes an issue. So it seems to be those controllers connect through Wi-Fi to the headset, and the Wi-Fi chipset in the Quest Pro, I can't even connect to Wi-Fi 6E, so it seems like there's some issues going on there. There's some gremlins in it or whatever. Tracking volume, honestly, it's never been an issue for me on the Quest 2. As far as I can tell, they've got better tracking volume on these, except for if you're above your head. But again, it's never been an issue, and I don't see when it'll ever be an issue for me. So I prefer these controllers. You know, if the Quest Pro controllers, if I could get the feel of those and the haptics of those with this same tracking system, or if the tracking system in the Quest Pro was just more reliable, then that'd be great. But the Quest Pro controllers, they're beautiful. They're really something impressive, but they also feel like over-designed. They have an entire SoC that's more powerful than the Oculus Go in each individual controller. That's a bit outrageous. That's just a bit outrageous. And I understand, you know, it's like, oh, you have limitless tracking volume, you know, you can track better than anything else. There's no such thing as occlusion. You can track under a table. Why are you tracking your controllers under a table? I don't know what you're doing. If you're climbing under a table, okay, great. That's great that you have a use case for these. But for me personally, I'll take consistency and ease of use any day over climbing under a table, or I don't know, shoving my hand into a gutter and being like, oh, look how well it's tracking. No one can see it, but I can tell you it's being tracked. So yeah, the Quest 3 is my headset going forward. I will be getting rid of this head strap potentially. I'll be switching it over to the Bobo M2 strap and hopefully getting back that open air design. But yeah, brilliant headset. Quest Pro is still an amazing headset. If you have the Quest Pro, if the contrast is something you care about, or if eye tracking and face tracking is something you care about, don't feel bad. Like don't feel like you need to upgrade or anything. You really don't. I'm just someone who's a hobbyist. I want to try the newest things. I want to, especially mixed reality. I was very interested in that, so I would have very, very happily stayed on the Quest Pro. It's just that I was able to sell my Quest Pro for a good price, you know, and I got this for ultimately cheaper than I sold the Quest Pro for. So, you know, that kind of made it a bit of a no-brainer for me. But I would have very happily stayed on the Quest Pro. Last thing I'll say in terms of clarity, Quest Pro is 25 ppd, Quest 3 is 22 ppd. I couldn't really tell a difference. And I feel bad about that. I feel like it's a 10% difference. It's not insignificant. It's over 10%, like 12.5 or whatever. I really felt like I should have been able to tell a difference, but I wasn't. I'm sure if I had them absolutely side by side, you could tell a difference, but I was going A, B with like about a minute gap in between because you're setting up a game to switch over to the other headset. And I guess also it was wireless streaming, so you know, you're going to have some level of compression and sharpening going on there, so I guess that muddied it up too. Maybe if they were both DisplayPort and you were switching between them, you'd maybe be able to tell better, but ultimately clarity 22 versus 25, you know, I wouldn't base any decisions on that. But yeah, that's the end of that. That's my ramblings done. The next video hopefully will be, you know, something about the Bobo M2 and see how I got on with that with this headset, and then maybe a bit more of an in-depth look at the Quest Pro. And then I do want to get back to looking at retro headsets. I think that's an interesting topic that's not really covered enough. But yeah, I wanted to get onto that while it was topical and while it's something that's kind of ongoing. And yeah, thanks very much for watching. Hope you all have a great day.